So we've invited the public here today for a public consultation event. We're looking at the Wessex Fields site, which is owned by the council and is in the local plan designated for employment land. We paused the process last year of approving development on it, and we're now looking to the public for ideas to see whether they like the master plan that's already on site or whether they've got other things that they'd like to do with it. The criteria that we're asking for is it needs to be financially viable, so it's not really an option just to leave the site empty as it is, but it also needs to have some social value and be environmentally sound. Those are the issues we had with the original plan, and we're keen to make sure that whatever we do with the site, that it actually fulfills those criteria and meets our corporate priorities.
The plan for today is about an hour and a half, with about the first half an hour of a bit of scene setting and filling in of what's happened to date, where we've got to, and then you'll hear from a couple of other our partners as well who want to express their views and thoughts about what could happen on the site. So just to be clear as well, this is about the site, and although that has an impact on and has a connection to the transport and the road infrastructure, which will both Vikki and I will explain a little bit more as we go through, this is really about getting your ideas for the site. So in a moment you'll be hearing from the leader of the council, Vikki Slade. We've also got via video link, although not live, a recording of Phil Richardson, the Director of Innovation at Dorset Clinical Commissioning Group, and from Richard Renaud, the Chief Operating Officer at Royal Bournemouth and Christchurch Hospital. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to the leader of the council.
I'm going to give you a bit of a scene setting of what the site is as far as the council is concerned, what it isn't, where we've got to and why we've got there, because I think it's really important to make it clear what we're dealing with, because I think depending on which side of the A338 you live on, the decision that was taken by the council, by the cabinet, to pause, review and potentially change what happens to Wessex Fields has been positively received or negatively received, and I want to try and sort of bridge that gap and let you know where we are. So the site was bought by the council and was put into the local plan, the previous Bournemouth local plan, which is over 5 years old. It's now out of date, and we're in the process of developing a new BCP local plan. And in that local plan, it was designated as employment land. So as that site currently stands, we are looking at an employment site. The site obviously needed access to it, and the plans for the site at the time involved a road that ran through the site that would come out at Deansley, and a new junction on the A338 with a flyover, which is the bit of it that we've actually initially said this is something that we're not comfortable with. The funding for the site and development of those connections was through the local enterprise partnership, and there were two stages to the funding that was being given to us. One was around delivering 500 jobs, and the other one was around delivering a couple of thousand jobs. And the funding was very much connected to the transport links. And in order to be able to deliver the roads access to get onto the site and deliver the junction that's already there to service Wessex Water, and the first phase of any jobs on that site, some road infrastructure has had to be built. Now, what we discovered as we went through was that there was inadequate funding available for whatever reason. We've only taken over in the last 8 months. There's inadequate funding to build a road through the site anyway. And we took the decision that actually building the site road, which was actually in the original proposal, A, there was inadequate money for it, and B, would restrict and limit what the use of the site was going to be. And so that's why we took the decision that we did to create a road onto the site, but to actually decide when the site was developed, where exactly any road structures on the site should go. There is actually already a master plan for the site, bearing in mind that it is an employment site, and an arrangement was made between the university, the hospital and the council. And there is a memorandum of understanding about how that moves forward, and you'll hear from the partners shortly, and you'll see some of the imagery that was created around the master plan for that site. Now, when you see the video, they're obviously talking about the existing proposals under that master plan. It's not a fait accompli. The reason for today is for us saying, is that the right use of the site? Is that the right use of all of the site? Are there other things we could do with that site? And the reason that we did that is when the Unity Alliance got together, we said that any sites that we were to develop would need to be financially viable, socially appropriate, and environmentally sound. So we weren't comfortable with a site that was all about economics, but not about the other two elements. And that's the other reason that we decided to pause progress on it. The issues that we had were around the environment, were around particularly the impact of the flyover, the fact that it was being badged as an industrial park, when actually a lot of the work on it you'll see is around so much more and different from an industrial park, and around the traffic levels. Because although people believed that the access road would ease traffic, particularly on this side, actually, with potentially 2,000 jobs going onto the site, 2,000 extra cars every day, the potential impact on local residents may not have been positive. It may have actually been a negative one. So what we didn't want to do was to go ahead with something which we actually didn't see any benefit for local people, for congestion and for the environment. I've already explained about the finances of it. The actual funding around the big flyover, which was the final phase of the development, was subject to a completely separate bid to central government through what's called the Sub-Regional Transport Board. And that application had not been made at the time that this master plan was put together. That application was in the process of being made last year, has now been withdrawn. But actually that funding bid was well oversubscribed, so there's a possibility that the council may never have achieved all of that money and the council would have had to backfund the difference. So the perception that we had all of the money to deliver all of the infrastructure on the site is actually wrong. And that's another reason why we said, whoa, actually, let's take stock. So we're really conscious that there is a bit of a conflict. So those people who we've spoken to, and many of them wrote to me shortly after becoming leader, if you live on the western side of the A338 in particular, around Holdenhurst Throop, actually Wessex Fields was not a welcome development. If you live in Little Down and Iford, it was actually a more positive development as an opportunity to create jobs, an opportunity to create an alternative to Castle Lane. And so we've been really conscious of the conflict between the two sides and trying to find a way forward. There are huge benefits to us in taking advantage of the skills of the hospital, in opening up access to the River Stour, opening up sustainable transport links over the river, and actually using the site that we own and that we are paying mortgage interest on for the right reasons. So one of the options is not just to sit on the site and leave it as a green field, because as a council it is actually development land. And if we were to sell the land, we would actually lose all ability to be able to control what goes on there, because everything is subject to planning application, and potentially you could have Amazon with a delivery warehouse on there, and actually, even if we declined an application, it could go to the inspectorate, be appealed, and we would lose all control. So I think we need to look at this in a positive light. And actually say, what is it that we could do that will benefit the people of Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole and the wider Dorset area, in terms of what sort of jobs do we want, what sort of infrastructure do we want, what sort of community facilities does this area need that could benefit people who are already here? Do we need housing? If we do, who do we need to house? If we have jobs, are there the right homes for them? And as an opportunity, and one of the biggest development sites that we have in the area, this is the time to actually say, stop, this is where we are, this is the criteria, what other ideas are there? And that's what today's about. It's not a fait accompli, but we are where we are. We do have a master plan. A lot of money was spent by the previous council in developing that master plan, so we have to take stock and say, If there's a better option out there than that master plan, great. If there isn't, then how can we improve on that master plan, and how can we make it sustainable so we can deliver the best bits without the negative impacts? And that's what we're asking you to do today.
Hello, my name's Phil Richardson. I'm the Chief System Integration Officer for NHS Dorset CCG. I'm also the Chair of Research Active Dorset, which is a collaboration of NHS, Local Authority and Bournemouth University. Together we're looking at how can we improve research and innovation in Dorset as a county to help develop the health and well-being of our local population. As a clinical commissioning group, we have responsibility for health for the 800,000 people who live in the county and for those who come here on their holiday or to visit people who live in Dorset. Together, as a research community, we've produced a vision which will bring together the local authority, the local population, the community that we serve, and the NHS organisations, including GPs and primary care, to create a living laboratory. And this will be the development of life science in the Dorset system, which will be for the benefit of all. Wessex Fields provides an excellent opportunity as it's right next to one of our high-performing hospitals at Bournemouth. It's also close to the largest part of our community in Dorset, and it's also helped serve our ageing population, which is growing each year. Wessex Fields, therefore, is a great locality for us to be able to bring together the university, the hospital, the local community, and NHS professionals. To be successful, we will all need to work together, and that includes local small enterprises, small companies working in life science research, small organisations that are working in digital research, as well as larger organisations which work nationally and internationally. This will allow us to bring healthcare professionals, patients who need care, and the expertise and innovation all together in one place. This grassroots approach to research means that we will be able to offer the whole of our local population the opportunity to take part in research, which gives them better access to the new therapies, the new drugs and the new technologies that are coming out to help improve health and well-being. We have an agreement with Bournemouth University that we're going to work closely together on research and innovation. This allows the academics at the university to work closely with the doctors, nurses, pharmacists, allied health professionals and other healthcare professionals in both the hospitals and out in the community, work together on developing new clinical research which will help the local population but also provides a means of improving the quality and delivery of local care. It also allows us to develop opportunities for people who want to come in and do research into Dorset and who are currently practicing healthcare in other parts of the country or possibly other parts of the world. We currently don't have an offer for them. Having Wessex Fields would be able to create that offer and create an attractive healthcare and research opportunity. And also, as we all know, Dorset is a great place to live. I think the Living Lab provides us with an opportunity not only to develop our research, but also to bring together more closely our community, our hospital, and the research professionals. Ideally, we'd like everybody in Dorset to be taking part in a clinical research trial, because we know this not only improves the quality of care, it also gives much better access to some of the latest technologies, therapies and care that is available.
Hello, my name's Richard Renaud. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Royal Bournemouth and Christchurch Hospitals. Wessex Fields offers a huge opportunity to improve things for our patients, our staff and the wider community. Perhaps first and foremost is an improved access road to the hospital site. It will be barrier controlled, so that won't create more traffic, but it will allow access, for instance, for ambulances, but also for permit controlled travel, which will reduce congestion. Another area that has huge potential is for housing, particularly for key workers. We already have 200 staff who live on site in our accommodation, but we know there's huge demand for more. Particularly for staff who want to live for a longer period rather than the more student-based accommodation that we have at the moment. It also means you could walk to work, which would be attractive. And because the house price to earnings ratio is very high in this area, it does mean that it sometimes makes it difficult for us to attract staff because of those costs. If there was some element of housing within the future Wessex Fields, we think that could be a really exciting area to explore and help us staff our wards and departments across the NHS. A really exciting area that we know we can develop more is around research and education. We already do research with the university and with others, and there's been huge benefits in that it helps patients get the very latest treatments. Taking part in research trials is good for patients getting the latest drugs and technologies. It's also good for staff because it attracts and makes the jobs more attractive, which means we can recruit and retain more staff.
I myself am a Bournemouth University graduate. With the elderly population growing within Dorset, it's really pivotal that we train and retain our own doctors, nurses and healthcare professionals and keep them within Dorset's healthcare economy.
There's also spin-offs for the local economy. For example, the Orthopaedic Research Institute is well established now and puts Bournemouth internationally on the map for anything to do with orthopaedics. With a facility on site next to the hospital, particularly as the hospital changes and expands, means that we'll be able to have research hand in hand with patient care and will really be attractive to international and national companies that look to do more healthcare research. We have a long history of working with Bournemouth University, particularly on education. Every year, many nurse students and other health professionals train at Bournemouth Hospital and Poole Hospital and across the NHS. We know we could do more, and having facilities with the university and hospital side by side will mean we can do more and potentially work towards developing a medical school locally, so we could train doctors in Dorset.
This is the original drawings and shows the development site with the road going through it. As you can see, I was going to point on my screen, but that's no good, is it? Point through, so you can see the site in the middle. It looks like a sort of a U shape. The NHS to the left, and the road as Vikki and others have explained in this site. So you can see that it connects to Deansy Road. That, as we've said already, that's 6 hectares of allocated employment land, and it's adjacent to the current hospital site and really as well, which we haven't mentioned today, the Retired Nurses National Home, which is in the box, if you like, the box here. Well, it's that alignment there. Yep. Sorry. So I was pointing at the box in general, but yes, yeah. There's also an existing high-quality business park immediately to the south of it, on the other side of Deansy Road, which houses companies like Aegeus and has recently refurbished Tringham House in it, and the Village Hotel. The previous Bournemouth Council applied for planning permission, as I'm sure many of you will know, and that was granted in February of last year. And then, as Vikki alluded to, the new administration came into power in May last year. So, obviously, as has been explained today, just filling in a few of the blocks on here, which would have helped to describe it. So the planned build is on that site. So that's the site that we own, as has been described today. And again, that's 6 hectares of employment land as it currently stands. So in terms of the options that we wanted to talk about today, Vikki's already mentioned some of this, but we could leave the site as a field. However, public money was used to purchase the site, and this must be repaid. Also, the current local enterprise partnership outputs from the funding that has been acquired to build the road.
Sorry, can I just say, it wasn't just a field, it was a farmer's field, so it was a productive piece of farming.
Okay, be that as it may, the point here is about the public funding really need to be returned. But yes, point noted. And under the current local enterprise partnership, outputs that have been agreed and required would be the delivery of 500 jobs. So by leaving the site as a farmer's field, those requirements still need to be met, or thought about how they would be met. We could sell the site. If we sold the site with the existing planning permission in place, we would potentially lose control of the development to someone else. So all this consultation and agreement with the public and further research into what could be, and all the ambition you've just seen here today, amongst other ideas that might be produced later today, we might lose that opportunity. And I think, the other option has been suggested, could we just give the site away? Well, state aid, which is a government ruling, prevents us from not doing that, not achieving market values for the assets that we own. So those are some reasons why we can't do those things. I think one of the things I also wanted to point out, which we haven't mentioned today so far, is something that Richard Renner alluded to in the video, and Vikki talked earlier about the memorandum of understanding we have with the hospital. We've been talking to them about whether an additional road could be created across the site to enable emergency access that Richard was talking about in the video. So, but again, that would need to be talked about and planned for and thought about and funded in certain ways that we need to yet discuss. So it's something that we were looking to do. So that some people have raised access about blue light vehicles, and that's one of the potential solutions which Richard mentioned. So just wanted to make sure we covered that today. So in terms of moving on to the fun bit, and none of us, we want to hear from you talking rather than us talking at you. This is about what we can do today, and you guys submitting your ideas for what the site could become. But what we need them to be is financially viable, and we need them to be environmentally, I think probably more than environmentally acceptable, to be honest. And as Vikki rightly pointed out, it's one of the fundamental parts of this programme. So that's what we need you to bear in mind as we're going through the idea creation today. It needs to be thought about how it could be financially viable and how it could be environmentally sustainable. I'm going to skim over the next few slides because Phil's already talked at length about this, but this is really the history of the existing master plan and the living lab that's come about through the idea of collaborating between the hospital, the university, the wider NHS and the council, and the opportunities we have in front of us, which I genuinely believe are huge for this area. We talked about the footprint and how those sites come together, and how working together as the hospital, the retired national nurses national home, and ourselves, could really make this campus something great. And you've seen the master plan, images of the master plan on the video. However, just to point out some aspiration behind it, we've potentially got the living lab in the middle here. This is created with some of the hospital land, which Richard talked about in his piece. And how we're working with the Retired Nurses National Home to think about how they might expand their site. And all of this was built into the master plan, albeit with a road coming through the middle of the site, which now it will not. As we said before, this is not a done deal by any means. However, this living lab in Dorset concept has legs, and in fact the local enterprise partnership has recently come to the end of its process to create a local industrial strategy, and Dorset's health and the economic benefits around that are fundamental to the local enterprise partnership strategy for the next 20 years. The vision that we have here to be the ideal environment to nurture industry-leading innovation and collaborative research, I think that's really important for our area. Why wouldn't we want to do that? However, it doesn't have to be here. It's something that could be anywhere in Dorset. However, we have the ingredients right on our doorstep. Here are some images of what the master plan created. I think we've already addressed the fact that some of the issues we might have if this is the best option to take forward are around scale. So something we'd need to consider about how this might change. This is an early artist's impression about what could happen. It's not anything more than that. However, it is exciting, I think. So it's really over to you. We have an hour to get the best brains in the room to come out and come up with your ideas on what could go forward on this site, bearing in mind the things we put together today about what the constraints are, what the opportunities are, and what you know and what you want in your local area. So So I'm going to hand over to Rachel to just put some meat on the bones of that and explain a bit more about what we need from you guys.
So the output that we need from you today is ideas, and as Vikki and Chris have just said, they don't have to be detailed. We're after creativity, hence the reason why you have lots of equipment on the tables in front of you. The post-it notes that you've got there, please, if you just want to put post-it notes on our post-it wall, you know, the land should not be used for in orange and red colours, or the land should be used for in green and blue colours, please just do that. We'll go round and we'll hand out some of these feedback forms. This enables you to have a scribble on here, draw your ideas out, blank on the back so you can give us a bit more detail, and if you'd like to provide your name and details so that we can contact you about your idea, you can, but that's obviously optional. We'll collect all these in and collate them, and then it will go into the cabinet process, as Vikki has said. So if I hand some of these round to you, you're not limited to one. You can fill out more than one if you like. So please mill around, spread out, use the space available, and chat amongst yourselves. And if you need to ask us any questions, obviously we're up here to talk to.